4 big moments that Howard Stern could actually be a radio host, a broadcaster, an interviewer. But instead, he decided to be a puppet. Or worse, he decided to bend over and get an exam instead of deliver an interview. Let's get back to this Howard Stern interview. There's quite a bit of little nuggets here that are worth analyzing and discussing. Most of this, by the way, is outright lie. This is lying Biden on Howard Stern. Let's have a go at this first one.
I learned a lot, and I made a lot of friends.
Did you ever save anyone's life when you were a lifeguard? Was anyone ever drowning?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, well, half a dozen times, usually younger kids, but...
You do the thing with the whistle and then jump in the bathing suit? And
you got it.
No kidding.
Yeah, there's a big pool. There were 7 lifeguard stands.
Oh, wow. See, that would define my... I would brag about that everywhere I went.
Well, by the way, I did it up in Lake Ontario, too, when I was in law school. But look, one of the things that...
What, you saved a dude's life when you were in law school? You were still doing the lifeguard thing?
The lifeguards, people just need help sometimes. It's not like it's so heroic.
Half a dozen times. He saved half a dozen lives when he was a lifeguard at a swimming pool in Delaware. Big pool. I'll grant you that. I grew up in Southern California. Some of my friends, way more athletic than me, than I, they were lifeguards at Newport Beach and Corona del Mar, California. They had pretty big surf there, by the way. Tough waves. There was like a lifeguard stand each block up the Balboa Peninsula there where Newport Beach is. And over the summertime, they were lifeguards. It's a thing they did. These were swimmers, water polo players, things like that. I knew several of them who were lifeguards there on the beach. I don't know one of them, not one of them, who would say to you today that they saved a life. Now, this is on the beach, on the Pacific Ocean, which sometimes, on a regular day, 3 to 5 foot waves. On some days, up to 8 foot swells, right? People surfing, people boogie boarding, people just body surfing and swimming. A lot of people over the summer, Southern California. Not one of my friends who were lifeguards would say to you today, I saved a life. But Joe Biden, in the early 60s, late 50s, as a lifeguard at a public swimming pool in Delaware, over the course of one summer, saved 6 lives. And there's no documentation. There's not. And did I just hear he said that he saved a guy's life at Lake Ontario when he was going to school at Syracuse University, too? In Lake Ontario, which, again, is bigger than a swimming pool, but it's not the Pacific Ocean. I'm thinking that's not true. Oh, and then where was Howard Stern? Remember how everyone used to say, oh, Howard Stern is the best interviewers. He really pulls things out of people. Doesn't let anyone get away with any BS, right? He's always got the follow. What has happened to Howard Stern? That's sad. That's embarrassing. And it gets worse.
I got put in that 10 most eligible bachelors list.
Because you were a United States Senator, you were a catch, yeah.
And so, and a lot of lovely women, but women would send very salacious pictures, and I just give them to the Secret Service. I thought somebody would think I was, and I just gave up.
Wait, I was afraid people would think that I was, and I just gave up. So he claims he was one of the most eligible bachelors in America because he was a senator. Have you seen him, by the way? Dude had a comb over from the age of 28, right? If he was an eligible bachelor and women were hot for him, it was because of the power that comes along with being a U.S. senator, which, by the way, explains all the motivation of Joe Biden's life for the last 50 years. He's nothing without the power that comes from the government, from you. He claims that attractive women, would send him salacious photos. Now, of course, this is before, forget about smartphones, this is before email. So if attractive women are sending him salacious photos sending him salacious photos to the U.S. Senate, it means they're sending it in the mail through the U.S. Postal Service. So we are to believe that women all around the country would take nude pictures of themselves, or they would have a friend take pictures of them that are salacious, and then they would deposit those letters in the mail and just send it blindly to U.S. Senator Joe Biden of Delaware. That's what we're to believe. And we're to believe that he collected them all and gave them to the Secret Service, even though U.S. senators don't have any Secret Service details. Secret Service details are just for the president, the vice president, and a handful of cabinet secretaries. Maybe the Speaker of the House, because they're in the line of succession for the presidency. But a backbencher U.S. senator from Delaware has no Secret Service protection. And I don't think there's even any Secret Service presence on Capitol Hill. But if we are to believe Joe Biden,
I got put in that 10 most eligible bachelors list.
Because you were a United States Senator, you were a catch. Yeah.
And so, and a lot of lovely women, but women would send very salacious pictures, and I just give them to the Secret Service. I thought somebody would think I was, and I just gave up.
If he could finish the sentence, I would really be a little more encouraged about our future. Anybody believe this one? Anybody? By the way, that whole I got put on a list of 10 most eligible bachelors. My guess, I'd love to find out whose list was that. This is before People magazine. I'm guessing it was like roll call in Washington, D.C., because being an eligible bachelor within the confines of Congress is a very different ballpark than, nationwide. But if he did make it onto a list of eligible bachelors, it was because his publicist bribed the publication to do it. That's what happens in this town. All right, you want more Biden lies? Let's have more Biden lies.
And I looked at my mom, I said, honey, you haven't said anything. She said, Joey, remember? True story. She said, remember when they were desegregating Linfield? And
By the way, this is Joe Biden's tell. You know how everybody has a tell when they're playing poker? How do you know that he's bluffing? Because he always stops himself and says, true story. See, it's a funny thing. If you're not full of shit and you're always telling the truth, then you don't have to stop and tell people, this is a true story. It's like, I would think that it's a given that whatever you're telling me is a true story. Why do you have to stop everything, bend over backwards, put on the chaser lights with giant arrows pointing at the sign that says, this is true. This is a true story. Only people who bullshit you all the time have to then stop and say, okay, this one's true. But he does it all the time. Why? Because he is, in fact, always bullshitting you. All right, we'll start from again. I'm giving Kevin a lot of things to bleep today. I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm so angry at Howard Stern for what he's become. I've decided to go in his direction. I've decided to use profanity. I'm going to start dropping F-bombs, and I'm going to have naked lesbians call into the show. Are we down with that, Kevin? We're changing directions a little bit.
We'll see.
He's leaving the door open, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't subscribe and like this video enough and share it, that's where we're going to have to go. Don't make us go there. Don't make us go full Howard. All right, here he goes. Now, I will not interrupt, but every time I hear him say true story, it's just like fingernails on a chalkboard. If somebody has to go out of their way to tell you that what they're telling you is true, you know they're a constant liar. And look at him. That's who he is.
And I looked at my mom, I said, honey, you haven't said anything. She said, Joey, remember? True story. She said, remember when they were desegregating Linfield, the neighborhood? There was, 70 homes built in suburbia. And I told you, and there was a black family moving in, and there was people who were down there protesting. I told you not to go down there, and you went down. Remember that? And you got arrested, be standing on the porch with a black family.
Right.
And they brought you back, the police. And I said, yeah, Mom, I remember that.
So that's a lie. Joe Biden's never been arrested for protesting desegregation. And by the way, he's never been arrested for anything, but he says he got arrested with Nelson Mandela in South Africa. He says this story often, although he also at the same time, there's contemporaneous speeches of him in the 70s and the 80s saying that he didn't do anything with the civil rights movement back in the day. But now we're learning that he got arrested, but he was so down with the cause for desegregation that he actually opposed busing, you'll remember. Kamala Harris actually basically called him racist for opposing busing in the 70s. He wrote an op-ed, he gave a speech on the floor of the Senate talking about how his school, his children's school, would be turned into a racial jungle. Jungle, that's his word, a racial jungle if they allow busing. But now we're to believe that before all of that, he got arrested protesting desegregation. There's no record of this, and it's a lie. And of course, he drags his poor mother into this. She's not with us. She can't verify it. There's no one who can verify it. They're all dead because, well, he's as old as dust.
But for example, I remember starting off playing Catholic League football, CAA football.
By the way, I don't think a lot of people know that you were a star receiver in high school. You were like the first string guy. You were the guy who caught the ball.
Runner-up at state, scoring. Wow. But I was a runt.
He was not the runner-up in scoring. This is something they do keep records of. He was not the runner-up in state scoring in Delaware when he was in high school. He did play high school football, and then he played a little bit at the University of Delaware, which is, by the way, a Division II school. But then he had to stop because his grades were so bad. He also claims that he was recruited by the U.S. Naval Academy to play football, but he turned them down because he wanted to start. And at the time, they had Roger Staubach as their start. Well, Roger Staubach was a quarterback, not a receiver. So that wouldn't have been a problem at the United States Naval Academy. And by the way, there's no record of him being offered a position at the United States Naval Academy. That's also something that they keep records of. So it's lie after lie after lie. And honestly, we're used to this. He's lying, Biden. Of course he's lying. If he's talking, he's lying. If he's breathing, he's lying. But can I just say it again? What the hell happened to Howard Stern? Or better yet, what if they got on Howard Stern? Everyone says, how does Stern continue to have a job in the post-Me Too era? Because you look at the stuff that Stern did back in the day, back in the 80s and the 90s, and even the early 2000s when he switched over to SiriusXM satellite radio where he is now. There's no possible. How in the hell is he making $25 million a year or more, I think, actually? For his ongoing contract at Sirius Satellite Radio. And the only answer is, how does he keep his job? Because this is what he's become. He's made the bargain. He's made the deal. If he were still the Howard Stern that was my Howard Stern in the 90s, he'd be gone. There'd be no saving him. But now he's a useful tool for these people, for the people who get to cancel. See, it's Team Biden. And those people on the left and Democrats, they're the gatekeepers. They're the ones who get to control who gets canceled and who doesn't get canceled. Otherwise, by the way, Joe Biden would be canceled. From the race stuff to the getting handsy with girls stuff to the ongoing racial remarks that he makes and various flubs and gaffes. But he made a deal. He said, listen, I'll carry out your agenda if you let me stay. And so they're using him. He's useful for the left and the power on the left. Howard Stern is useful. As soon as they're not useful anymore, they will get canceled. That's how it works. That's just how it works. So there you go. 4 tall tales from Joe Biden, 4 big lies, and 4 big moments that Howard Stern could actually be a radio host, a broadcaster, an interviewer. But instead, he decided to be a puppet. Or worse, he decided to bend over and get an exam instead of deliver an interview. That wasn't an interview. That was a full body massage.